Hello, my friends. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Novella. Today is Friday, and that means a deep dive. And normally, either I talk about a book, or today I will talk about an author. My most favorite author is Coetzee, John Maxwell Coetzee. He's South African, but he lives in Australia. He writes mostly in English or in Afrikaans, and sometimes even in Dutch. Now, Coetzee is not an easy writer, not in the sense that he writes complicated stories, far from it, but it's deceivingly simple the way he writes. I mean, he uses very sharp and precise prose, very short sentences. You won't see very flowery prose in his work, but it's all multi-layered. So it's like all his sentences are like building blocks to a much bigger story. And that's why I like Coetzee so much. It's rarely an easy read in the sense that it's mostly very dark, bleak. He is not a funny man by any means. He's an interesting man, but he's not very funny. And his work mostly talks about loneliness or people who choose to be recluse. Or it's often also about a person that goes away and then comes back. That are his main themes, and once in a while he talks about South Africa and the situation there. Coetzee himself is also very solitary in the sense that he is not a man that likes to talk for a crowd. He never gives interviews, or very, very rarely. I've seen one and it was very painful to watch. He is not so eloquent. The words that come out of his mouth are not so eloquent as what he writes. So yeah, it's a very recluse man. So you don't know much about him. He was a programmer in his very early days, and he was in his 30s when he first published his first book. And yeah, Waiting for the Barbarians was his first international breakthrough. He is also a Nobel Prize winner for Disgrace. So yeah, I learned about Coetzee when I read the book The Slow Man. I was immediately sold. Of course, my favorite character ever is in there, and that's Elizabeth Costello. She has also her own books, Elizabeth Costello, and then I have here, what is it? Because I read in Dutch, because it's the closest to what he wants to write, mostly moral tales. This is about, she is already elderly. Here she is 66 and there she is already older. And she is a famous novelist, but she is very recluse. She lives in Spain somewhere with her many, many, many cats. And her son wants her to come over and live with him, and she doesn't feel like it. That's often a theme in her story. Elizabeth Costello here too, it's about being misunderstood. She goes to Amsterdam to give a lecture about her book, and that doesn't go very well. And then she goes to her sister in South Africa, that doesn't go very well either. And his characters are very, very hard to like, but I like Elizabeth Costello. I don't know, maybe I have a bit of Elizabeth Costello in me. His first breakthrough was with this, international breakthrough was with this one, Waiting for the Barbarians. That was his first breakthrough, and then of course he wrote Disgrace. I love this book. This is one of the few books that really talk about a similar situation as what was happening in South Africa. So here the protagonist is a man who works at a border, but sort of a liaison officer, I don't know how you call it. and he has to keep the peace between the people that live in the country and the barbarians that live next to the border, and but everything goes very well. People understand each other very well. There's no animosity whatsoever. But then the central bureau, some place far, far away, decides that the people who live across the border are sort of barbarians, and they are evil people, and they are not allowed anymore to cross the border. So, and that brings, of course, a lot of turmoil. It is a beautiful book. It's a really good starting point to read Coetzee. This is a really good starting point, and then maybe The Slow Man, and then maybe Costello. Don't start with Disgrace, because that's a really tough book. There's a lot of disturbing things going on there. It's about a professor who falls in disgrace, and his daughter has been raped, and it's a beautiful book, but it's a horrible book. That's why he won the Nobel Prize with that book. A very deserved winner. This one is Boyhood. This one is about a kid who is the little prince at home and a terrorist at school, and he hates his father, and he always thinks that his mother doesn't do enough. So yeah, very fun read. And this is the life and times of Michael Kay. This is also a story about a man who comes back after being away for a very, very long time. People actually had forgotten about him, and he comes back to the farm, and they don't know what to do with him. So yeah, it brings a lot of turmoil and difficulties. Summertime is a fun story in the sense that it's a very creative story. It's about a biographer who wants to write a biography about the writer Coetzee. And he comes to the place where Coetzee lives, and he starts interviews and has interviews with all the people that know him, ex-girlfriends, ex-lovers, colleagues, his wife. And the more and more you discover who Coetzee really is, somebody who is not very good at meeting people, at being social. It's painful to read, but it's also beautiful. And it's a beautiful book, this one, Summertime. And then I have some very short books that are unavailable in other countries. I have He and His Man. This is the story about Robinson Crusoe and Friday. They were rescued, and now they live somewhere at a beach in Bristol. It's the aftermath, and they live together. And then these are a bunch of short stories that I have by Coetzee. So yeah, but he has, I think, in total 30 books or something, and he writes essays. He does a lot of translations too. And yeah, he's a brilliant author. Bleak. Easy to read, but not easy to digest. Thank you for watching. I hope you liked it. Bye-bye.